scope as what he should have got, but Berry got it. And the last student is Bindu Bhushan Ray. These are the students of Raman. So Raman was not just a simple person. He was a man of many words and sharp wit. And he was not happy when the Prime Minister Nehru at that time, 1948, when he became the Prime Minister of India, his scientific vision was so different and his policies were so different. He wanted to channelize all the research sources to the Council of Scientific and Industrial Research Laboratories, and also institutionalized groups. Raman was very much against this, and he did not like whatever the way Nehru went on with this. But it is another interesting story is that when Prime Minister Nehru visited RRI, Raman Research Institute in Bangalore, 1948, Raman met Nehru and took him to a laboratory where he turned off all the lights except the UV light. And then he placed a piece of copper and a piece of gold in front of Nehru and asked him to identify which is gold, which is copper. Of course, there was no sunlight. It was the UV light which was there, and Nehru found, and he touched copper and he said that is gold. In fact, you know what is the effect which has happened? All of you are physics students. You know what is the work function of copper and what is the work function of gold. And because the UV light was on, the copper was glittering more. Then Raman says, Mr. Prime Minister, everything that glitters is not gold. This is the sharp bit what Professor Raman had. Then the landmark of designation and acknowledgements were done. The American Chemical Society and the Indian Association of Cultivation Science, which I told you is a very famous institute today, they have made a historic chemical landmark on December 15, 1998 about the Raman's work. There is, this entire thing repeats whatever I have already presented. Now only I will read the last sentence. Its current uses range from non-destructive identification of minerals to the early detection of life-threatening diseases. For his discovery, Raman was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1930. This is how the plaque at IACS Jadavpur, Calcutta reads. So Raman had two children. One is Radhakrishnan, the other one is Chandrasekhar Raman. I had seen Radhakrishnan, who was also a director of the Raman Research Institute, but I had not, I don't know much about Chandrasekhar Raman. In 1948, Professor Raman became the director of the newly constructed RRI, where he remained continuously active, delivering his last lecture just 2 weeks before his death. His research interests changed in the later years, and he primarily investigated the perception of color. That's how the Dhruvatara of India disappeared on 21st November 1970 at the age of 82 in Bangalore, Karnataka. So this is the life story of Professor C.V. Raman. Now let us see, was there any controversy about Raman's discovery? Of course, there was one controversy, which I thought I will just make a mention after. In Russian literature, it is called as combinational scattering light. That is, combination of frequencies of photons and molecular vibrations, but in English it is named after Raman. The main emphasis of Mandelstam, who is one of the co-workers for this, was broadly considered the theory of oscillations, which included optics and quantum mechanics. And Mandelstam was the co-discoverer of inelastic combination of scattering of light used now in Raman spectroscopy. So that means that there was a parallel work which was going on. It is Landsberg and Mandelstam who worked at the Moscow State University, and they had found all this, whatever Raman had found, parallel discovery had gone on, but the publication came out first by C.V. Raman. Hence, even though people say that it should have been shared and all that, but it is ruled out, and Professor Raman got the Nobel Prize. Let me now go to the real subject of Raman scattering. When considering Raman scattering, we can think of about physics in two ways. One is the classical way of interpretation, the other one is the quantum particle interpretation. In classical wave interpretation, we consider light is consisting of electromagnetic radiation, and hence it has an electric field associated with it and interacts with a molecule through its polarizability. Please understand, it is a classical interaction where you consider the electromagnetic wave interacting with the molecule and changing its polarizability. Polarizability is determined by the electron cloud's ability to interact with the electric field. And if you have larger number of electrons, like a pi bond, let us say, then you see that the electrons are localized. Hence, soft molecule like such as benzene tend to be strong Raman scatterers. Hence, they give very good Raman spectra. While harder molecules like water tend to be fairly weak Raman scatterers. So, Raman, if you want to do basic water using Raman effect, you will not see much of Raman scattering. So the classical way of interpretation is that the wave interacts and then it goes into the polarized way. And you can see that the light coming out through alcohol is a polarized light. And in the quantum particle interpretation, it is very similar to the Compton effect, where the particle, the photon is acts like a particle and goes and interacts with the molecules of alcohol, and you will get an inelastic scattered light which is coming out. Which means that the scatter light has a different frequency compared to this. In Compton effect, you really see the same type of phenomenon. So in this, light is thought of a photon which acts like a billiard ball and then going and interacting with the molecule and elastically is getting scattered. So the number of scattered protons will be proportional to the size of the bond. See, now if you have more bonds in the in alcohol, you will, that means that the more localization of the electrons, you will see that there is a larger scattering. Hence, you will be able to see the effect. Again, on the same argument, pi bonds in benzene tend to scatter lots of protons, and water with the single bonds, small single bonds, is a weak Raman scatterer. This part I had discussed with Manjunath. I think he will be doing a much better job than what I am doing here. I'm only giving you the typical way how a diatomic molecule can be thought of giving a very good Raman spectrum. Consider two atoms, M1 and M2, connected by a spring. It is not actually the spring; it is a bond. And the two masses are, if they are going out onto the direction what I have seen, then x2, which is its initial position, will change to some other value. Similarly, x1 will change to another value, which means that about the equilibrium position, the two atoms are actually moving apart. And then for such a arrangement, I can write the equation of motion where the two atoms, the masses of the two atoms are involved, and their displacement is taken as a second derivative of the time. Then it will be proportional to the spring constant k times x1 plus x2, where x1 x2 are the displacement of each of the atoms. Now, if we simplify the variables, instead of x1 plus x2, if we keep it as q, and the M1 M2 by M1 plus M2 is nothing but the reduced mass of the system, then you can write the equation as a differential equation, mu d square q by dt square is equal to minus kq. Now all of us know what is the solution for this equation. It is q is equal to q naught into cos 2 pi nu mt, where nu m is the vibrational frequency of this, and that is given by 1 over 2 pi root k by mu. And if you don't understand this equation at this point of time, you can discuss with Dr. Manjunath. He will be able to give you a much better picture of this. From this equation, it is very clear that the molecule vibrates in a cosine pattern with a frequency proportional to the bond strength and inversely proportional to the reduced mass. When you say inversely proportional to the reduced mass, that means that it is molecule dependent, and what are the atoms which are involved in the molecule. Hence, it depends on the type of bonds as well as the type of atoms which are involved. That's how it becomes a fingerprint. It gives a signature which is a fingerprint of that particular molecule. Though through the Raman effect, these vibration frequency can be measured, and due to the fact that the polarization of a molecule changes, which is a function of the displacement. Now, considering the polarizability, it induces, when there is a change in the polarization, it induces a dipole moment P. And in terms of the polarizability, the dipole moment can be written as alpha E naught cos 2 pi nu naught T. Here, nu naught is the frequency of the light or the photon what we are using. And alpha itself can be expanded as alpha naught plus Q, which is the displacement, delta alpha by delta T, Q is equal to 0. Now, if I substitute for this, then you will see that the first term of this dipole moment comes out as alpha E0 cos 2 pi